Hi, I'm Rory. I'm here with Leo today, and we're going to talk about the way that we're building our product faster using AI. You might have heard of GitHub Copilot, you might have heard of Cursor. Recently, we've been using a ton of Claude Code, and we've been getting really excited about it internally, and we thought it'd be cool to talk about what we've learned, what we're doing, and where we're going next. Leo, do you want to start by sort of talking about where we've come from and what we're doing now?
Yeah, so for some context, for the past year, Rory and I have been working on an on-call product. I think we've been using AI in ways that is kind of peppered around your development setup. A lot of people are familiar with like autocomplete lines in your ID, like some GitHub Copilot here and there, ChatGPT questions, just disjointed bits of AI here and there. I think that was the picture for most of my time at Incident from maybe a year and a half ago to maybe 3, 4 months ago. Then Claude in the browser got released by Anthropic, and we started using that a bit more to share context and build our features a little bit more. But I think the real like thing that changed how we ship product Incident is Claude Code, which came out early April, I think. It's kind of crazy to think that's only been 2 months and it's already really changed how we're building product. And we've always prided ourselves on shipping fast, but now we've really kicked things into gear and it's been fun to develop as engineers that are working completely differently. Rory, how are you using Claude today? What did you do differently as opposed to, let's say, 6 months ago?
6 months ago, we were using Claude a bit like people are used to using ChatGPT, like the way my mum uses ChatGPT, where she will open a browser and a chat window and start giving it details, and it will reply back to her. We were doing that, giving it code examples, pasting in documents, and asking it to analyze those and help us. We were also using Claude Projects, which is a way of giving it shared context, like standard things that you do in our code base, so that it would remember them between sessions. What we're doing now, though, is we're using Claude Code, which is a terminal-based LLM where you just type Claude into your terminal and it will start running in the directory that you're in. You can ask it questions and it will run terminal commands on your behalf. What that means in practice is that you say, I want to change how we create overrides schedules on the front end, and it will learn that the front end is in apps/dashboard. It will find a bit of code that shows the schedule override model, and it will be like, cool, what do you want to do? It's really cool at just like getting you up to speed on new code bases, but also actually making changes. So I think when we first started using Claude in the browser, we were probably quite used to copying in some code and being like, make this bit simpler or help me work out this bit, or even just like doing some boilerplate. But I think we've very quickly progressed to starting a new Claude session and getting it to do almost everything. So in its simplest form, that could be like one ticket you're working on where you're like, I don't know, what have you been building this week?
This week I was like, I want this cache to be invalidated when I make a request to our API to update an alert source. And yeah, Claude,
Yeah.
it was there.
Yeah, it can start as little context as that, and it will go and find the code. It'll suggest a code change, commit on your behalf, and push up code changes. It does a little self-attribution of written by Claude Code. So you can't do it sneakily and hope everyone assumes your work is your own. You can have Claude write the code, push up a pull request, open the pull request, and then we have Claude installed as a GitHub action so that you can even have Claude review the pull request, so that effectively you can build all this stuff asynchronously. What that's led to is we're now running multiple Claude instances at once. Many engineers here are using Git work trees, which is a thing that Anthropic recommend for this, where today let me check. I think I currently have, oh no, I've restarted my machine because of a forced software update. I think earlier today I probably had 3, if not 4 Claude contexts open, each of them working on completely unrelated features. Last week, Ben, one of our infrastructure engineers, posted in our product feedback channel and was like, it'd be awesome if our JSON attribute editor did this, which is like a bit in our product where you receive some incoming alert payload and you parse it using JavaScript. And previously we had like the single line input that was just a bit gross to use. Ben posted about this in our product feedback channel, and I effectively took some of his feedback, added a little bit of context about our code base, and put that in a new Git work tree completely separately while I was doing other work. Every 15 minutes, I would maybe check on it, see what it was up to, and just accept, decline, change things. While I was doing other work, with maybe 10 minutes of input from myself, we have now shipped a whole new JSON editor. It took so little input, it feels almost like something not worth shouting about. And then suddenly customers are saying this week, oh, this is way better. It's the kind of thing that just wouldn't have got prioritized before, but now you can send Claude off to have a look at it.
Yeah, it's really crazy how different it is, how different you're working now with Claude Code. Like, I'm just thinking back a year ago, I'm getting asked how you're using AI. I'm like, oh, I've asked it how to sort a slice and go. Now I'm like, have a look at these well-defined linear tickets and open a new tab for each of my Claude, build this in a work tree, build this in a work tree. As I'm iterating through this, it keeps asking me for this tool access so I can add that to my settings page and everything. It's like you've got an army of engineers that are really good, that can just do your work, like the simpler work for you. You're just spending a lot more time thinking and doing more product thinking. It's been really interesting to see how that's changed, but also how it allows us to ship so much more for our customers.
I think on that, it is really cool as a prototyping and product thinking tool. Like earlier today, someone suggested that a message we send to Slack when you get paged is a bit nondescript, not very useful. If you get a low priority page, which is something you don't need to acknowledge anytime soon, that looks exactly the same as when you get a high priority page. And we have a few different code paths that show you different text based on the different variants of escalation. Someone said it was annoying, and it's the kind of thing that would have taken 20 minutes for someone to go and find the code, check out a branch, if not longer. And you could just chat to Claude in a completely different work tree where you don't need to context switch quite as heavily. You just send it the details, and it will give you a little preview in the Claude context window where it's just like, oh, we could do it looking at this or like this. And you can run it in plan mode, which is quite a new thing, where it will not actively make code changes, but it'll tell you what it thinks you should do or maybe give you some options and you can iterate. I was going to say, should we chat about why Claude Code is stuck and we think other tools like this maybe haven't?
I think the reason Claude Code stuck, at least for us, is there's a couple of things. One, we've been able to inject context into it. So you can just give a bunch of Claude.files and tell you how your engineering org works. So like what patterns we follow, how you like access RDB, how you should do certain things. And it just automatically reads those. And I think the other thing is it's because it's not built into any tool. It means that no one has to separate from something they're already used to. Like everyone's already using a terminal, so they don't have to change completely. I'm still using IntelliJ. Other people are still using VS Code. Other people are still using Cursor. But we get this thing that just works for everyone. And I think the other thing is also just how fast Anthropic is shipping on top of Claude. Like, releasing MCP support for Sentry and Linear and the speed at which they're fixing things. Like, I think early on when they were shipping, we were like, oh, why is Claude being so, like, going down these awful roads? So it doesn't understand anything. And it actually did improve, and we saw the improvement.
I remember before doing this podcast, we have a Slack channel called AI Chat where people share any anecdote around AI, whether it's an interesting article they read or a cool usage of AI that they found. And it's quite funny scrolling back through even 2 months ago, 3 months ago, when Claude Code was relatively recent and we're like trying stuff out and both finding stuff hilarious, finding stuff bad, finding stuff like mind-blowing, honestly, from the get-go even. And it's crazy to be like, oh, they've added plan mode and that this is something we're now using extensively and it's only a week old. Like you say, MCP servers that I guess we've had limited success with. I myself tried an iOS simulator MCP server. We have a mobile app and I was doing some design iteration there. We have Figma screenshots and a mobile app simulator. In theory, you'd think that Claude can look at one, look at the other, look at your code and just make small changes to the code and try and get them more similar. But in my experience, and I think most people that I've spoken to, most people at Incident anyway, have found is just so slow it's not worth doing. I think I left it for about 10 minutes and it felt like one of those hot dog finger machines just tapping around aimlessly in the screen to try and change tab. So it hasn't really stuck yet, but I can see the promise and it feels like it could get better in the future.
Yeah.
What about Cursor? Do you think that's something people are likely to adopt? I think a few people have tried it.
I think the people who are using it, we could make a whole other podcast episode about how attached people are to their tools. I don't really see myself leaving my Golang instance. And I had installed a plugin that like opens things in Cursor from Golang. At this point, you might as well just be using Claude, which is already a context, like a window switch. Some people will use it because it works for them in their workflow. The beauty of Claude is that it's starting to integrate into a lot of other things, and we have plans to build infrastructure around it to let it go faster. We already have branch previews when we open a pull request. So in theory, Claude could open a front-end change and you could go on our staging preview and look at it changing, and you don't have to do anything on your own machine. But we don't have that for all changes, and you want Claude to interact with it. Now our infrastructure team is considering that as part of Q3, which is really cool. That's just not something that comes with a tool like Cursor.
Seems insane, but the workflow we're looking at now is we have a Slack channel called product feedback where people can say like, it would be nice if this did this, or I don't like the way we do this. Right now we use linear asks, they're a bot product to automatically create tickets in linear. The potential next step we're looking at is someone says something in a Slack channel, Claude runs in the cloud and automatically opens a pull request with the suggested changes, and then our like branch preview stuff creates a URL that you can open and test it out within like 10 minutes of the thing being suggested. And then maybe the person just keeps talking in the thread, and rather than you spinning up a Claude window, you've just got a Slack thread you can chat to. Pretty cool.
Yeah, we've talked about our development is changing. I think there's a lot to talk about in the future. What's like your favorite Claude Code example of recent that's like could be a good push for people to understand how it's bringing value to us?
Yeah, the most recent one for me is I'm unfortunately on call this week, and I was paged, I think, midnight the other night, and I had to make a code change to fix the issue. Generally, we have pretty like good practices around other engineers will review things. If it's, something is broken, like the priority is fixing the thing. So there's sort of like sensible policies around that as well. This was me getting paged in the middle of the night on a piece of code I knew fairly well and was like quite confident in. So I didn't want to wake someone else up just to review it, but I could get Claude to write the code change. I got Claude to review the code change. I was reading through it based on like my knowledge of it as well, and was like, this seems really sensible. It's also incredibly good at writing tests. Like it went from, it would write tests and they wouldn't compile to, it write tests, it runs them on your behalf, and it adds cases that you didn't even think of. Like you'll ask it to do one thing and it's like, I don't know, some granny that's just a bit too nice, and it's like, oh, we should probably do this as well while we're here, and it's gone and written your whole other test case. So nice, and you push up your code and you realize, oh, I didn't even ask for that, but I guess I did need it. I got paged, I made this code change and never woke anyone else up. I can show it to other people in the morning, but I had high confidence in it that night just because I got Claude to review it. Have you got any of your favorite examples of recent?
I think the main thing that's really blown my mind is recently we were making some changes that essentially amount to a linting rule, or we want to enforce that someone's doing the right thing in our code, like following a right pattern. It's quite painful to like write the semgrep rule, like add it everywhere,
famously hard.
progressively migrate people over. One of our newest engineers wrote a Claude agent that would check if your PR was like touching a file that did something wrong, would tell you, oh, maybe you should change that, and also would suggest you what you should change, which means you just completely removed like the whole thought of like, oh, maybe something is wrong. Oh, how do I fix it? And like you just have the final thing, which is like fix it. And I think that's really going to be a game-changing thing of like removing tech debt, doing things a lot faster in terms of implementing things cross-repo. I thought that was really cool just because of how easy it is to now that we have a thing that we can copy that's just like an agent that can do things for us. In GitHub, like it just runs on our PRs.
And even reading it, you're like, I can read this in plain English text and I can understand it. And even the feedback you get if it comments on your stuff is quite friendly. My brother actually sent me a screenshot yesterday of his friend's code review bot, and I think they prompted it to be, it's honestly like a hillbilly voice or something. So it comments on your PRs in a comedic way, let's say, which is pretty funny. It's next for us, and I think we've talked a bit about branch previews and things. What stuff are you looking forward to? Are you longing for in Claude or in AI usage in general?
I think if we could have our infrastructure team work on ways for Claude to be able to have an instance it can look at and determine things by interacting with it or taking screenshots, that would be great. My request to Anthropic is to have a way of monitoring my Claudes and what's going on, because when you were like, oh, I don't know how many Claudes I've got running right now. I've got 4 running right now. And I'm like, I've completely forgotten what the first one is doing. I can go back to the tab and figure it out. But I'd love to have a monitoring thing that just tells me what's going on. But that might even be out of date in 2 months' time, and we'll be in a new monitoring practice. It does everything automatically, and then we just review it.
For sure. It's kind of funny. There's times I'll go into my Claude windows and literally just be like, "What are you doing?" Because I'll be scrolling back through and be like, "I don't remember doing any of this," and then suddenly realize, "Oh yeah, actually that touches on something interesting." I'm quite impulsive to just try things. People will say, or I'll have an idea of like, "Wouldn't this be cool?" And now this gives some even quite large problems, and now it gives you like a space to just go and like exercise it and leave it as a draft pull request, and you can like come back to it later and ideate a bit. Sometimes at one shot you're like, well, I guess we make it a feature. It's super handy.
Yeah.
I guess we should wrap up pretty quickly, but maybe before we do, should we talk about our favorite non-technical uses of Claude? When have you used Claude recently for something unrelated to work that you thought was really cool?
Yeah, I use it quite a lot outside of work. It's like my new Google Code. It doesn't have any ads, pop-ups, which makes it easier to use. I think something that's really cool is you can use it for your running plan. You could ask it, oh, I want to improve at running. This is how much I run. What should I do? And it will give you a pretty decent plan. I also ask it really silly things like, what does that mean in miles per second instead of kilometers per second?
That's good. It's also so enthusiastic for something like
Yeah.
this. Like, maybe tone it down a bit. Let's keep it real. The thing I've been using it for is I want to try and make a new bag for my bike. There's this guy online with his website, Learn MYOG, which is like learn to make your own gear. But it's an American site, so all the stuff is American. But with the deep research tools and things you can get now, it's so cool where you can basically just print off a PDF of the page, drag the PDF into Claude, turn on web research, and give me these from English-based stores. It goes away and it gives you all the nice little reference things where you can just click on the URL and it'll open a product page and add them to cart. It's very cool.
Well, let's see what that bike bag looks like.
Maybe a show and tell for future episodes. All right. I think that's us.
Yeah, I think that's it. More to come. Who knows? We'll be
Yeah.
on.
If you're listening to this and you're curious to hear more, send us any questions and we'll happily answer about what we're up to.
All right.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.